listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Brian and Pat.
It's almost like clockwork, Pat. It's Thursday afternoon. You can set your watch to it at this point. And it's snowing.
I don't like that. This needs to stop.
If Podcast Thursday, it just always has to snow on us.
We're going to be doing these in the summer, and somehow it's going to snow.
It's going to be, though, like, every week that it decides to just, like, downpour rain is going to be every Thursday at 4-something in the afternoon.
I mean, the laws for whenever I have to take my garbage out is when it's terrible weather. Every time there's a windstorm, snowstorm, or rainstorm, it is every time I can guarantee it's the time for my garbage to go out that night.
Or if you've like biked or you have to walk somewhere, the wind will always be against you. It is never in your favor.
No, not one bit. It will never help you. It will always hinder. So here we are. We're old people talking about the weather. This is how we talk. It's just like, did you see the weather outside?
Before we move on anywhere, I just have to bring this up because this shocked me when you told me this earlier this week. You're one of those people that doesn't buy a brick of cheese. You buy bagged shredded cheese.
Yeah,
Why?
I'm lazy. That's there's literally no reason why I don't, except for I'm lazy. I would rather pay more money to have pre-shredded cheese so I can go to the kitchen, like when I'm hungry, I'm not sure what I want to eat, and eat cheese out of a bag like a goblin and just live my best life.
You know, you can buy a brick and just like spend 2 minutes shredding it into a Ziploc bag and you get triple the cheese.
That is too much work. That is more than 400 times the amount of work than just buying a bag of cheese. I would rather no. You can't convince me. You can't.
That was there's been a lot of the world's been very strange. Of the crazy happenings in the world, that was probably the most shocking discovery of the week to me. I don't know why. Just when you said that, I was like, you're one of those?
Well, and you're talking about eggs, and I don't like eggs. Eggs are not my thing.
Yeah, because you didn't get what I was talking about, that somebody had they had the bag of already hard-boiled, deshelled eggs in the fridge, and I was like, oh, just it takes 10 minutes to do. It's
well, the part that was confusing to me, because I was just like, because they smell? Is that what,
your wife understood it, though.
Yeah, because she eats those types of eggs. It's, for me, it's like scrambled or like the little bit of drippy egg or nothing at all. And it's like, I'll put mustard and hot sauce and, yeah, that's right, mustard. You heard me.
Ew, that is more disgusting than my dad putting ketchup on his French toast.
Okay, no, that is horrifying. At least French toast, so eggs with mustard as a condiment is not as disgusting as ketchup on French toast. There's one condiment for French toast, whereas eggs, there's a variety you can mix it with.
You might be the only person I've ever heard of that's like, you know what I want on my eggs? Mustard.
Mustard, hot sauce. You can put some avocado on there. You can put some bagged shredded cheese on there. You got yourself. It's like a deconstructed
Everything
omelet.
Besides the mustard, you've got me on the mustard. I'm like, no, Pat, just no.
You're wrong.
No wonder you don't eat eggs. You ruin the flavor with mustard.
No, it's because when we worked together at our retail job of a place we probably shouldn't say the name of, there's rotten eggs that constantly would break on my vest, and the smell of rotten eggs, I can never forget it. So it's so hard for me to eat eggs because that's all I can smell. It's awful. But
I don't know how we move on from that, but we will.
Well,
wait, can I do this one since you're always so good at it?
Sure.
Do you know what else was rotten this week?
Oh,
the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes, they were. My good. It's weird because they were rotten, but they won 2 games.
That's what they do. They'll be like a 4-point-something GAA, and the Leafs have won 3 of their last 4. I don't know how they do it. If you're unaware, Saturday night was probably the most insanely fun, stupid game of hockey I have ever witnessed in my life. Watching it with 2 diehard Leaf fans, too.
I really wish that was something I could have experienced with Leaf fans. I watched it solo, but my goodness, it was wild. I haven't seen a game like that in years, and I know that we're not the first people to talk about this game. It has been just peppered all over the news, but the goaltending was atrocious. The goals were amazing and terrible at the same time. And I mean, they even said before the game started that the Leafs they had some bum tums, if you will. They were not doing well. It's probably actually what I think, Brian, you might have had something similar earlier, which is one of the reasons why we actually had to miss one of the podcast episodes.
Yeah, the week that we missed it. If that is the case, not fun.
No.
But to me, just thinking of it this way, like my family that I watched it with, they were happy that the Leafs ended up winning. They were like, it was a fun game, because when a team gets up 7-2, it's just like, it's not worth watching.
Yeah.
Then the third period starts and it's like, oh boy, could you imagine being a Detroit fan in arena watching that though? That would be like the lowest of the lows into, oh my God. Like that.
Yeah.
It was as a third party watching, it was so much fun because it was so bad.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
I think the one thing, actually, now kind of thinking back on it, especially from this past week, the thing that stands out to me the most right now is how quiet it is at the Air Canada Centre with a full bar.
Scotiabank Arena.
Is it
Scotiabank? Wait. Yeah, it hasn't been the ACC for a while now.
You know, it's still Skydome to me for the Jays. So, but
it's still the John Labatt Center.
Exactly.
Scotiabank Arena.
Scotiabank Arena sounded like it was quieter than when there was no fans in there. What is happening? There was no Go Leafs Go. There was barely anything. The only thing I really picked up on is when they booed Mrazek. Like, what is happening? This is a team with this fan base is supposed to be the most ravenous and amazing fan base. Everybody, Leafs fans, and you're whisper quiet at your first full barn game. Are you kidding me?
Well, I guess that's what happens when the diehards can't go or afford, or they're too afraid to go out, because you watch you watch a West Coast trip in Canada, the away fans are louder. There's only a few places in the NHL where you will actually hear the home team be louder than the Leafs away contingent. And at home, yeah, I agree. It's just nothing.
It's sad. Like, how can the Leafs, as a team, like the team on the ice, how can they sit there and go, yeah, it's great to play, but we really love playing in front of the fans, when the fans aren't even there? Like, they're just sitting there. Like, are they, influencers? Are they just sitting there on their phones taking their selfie with their duck lips out? Like, is this what we're doing? Like, what's going on? How is it so quiet in those barns in comparison to you look at other markets, Vegas, for instance. I know obviously that's a travel destination, but it is loud and it is full. New York, those tickets aren't cheap. So, I mean, yes, there's a lot of money in New York.
Montreal.
Like,
Montreal is one of the loudest, craziest in the entire National Hockey League. They probably have just as many suits sitting there as Toronto does, but the ones that go to those Hab games, I think they're getting just as rowdy as the, diehard fans who are going.
It's just, I don't know, it's kind of sad. Like, not pathetic sad, but, I kind of feel bad for the players. When you think about it, the only time that you hear cheers from and I know it was a 5-1 blowout, the game that I'm referencing here, which was Buffalo
against
versus Toronto.
Buffalo.
Yeah, which, kind of dire straits there. But at the same time, the whole game, I watched the whole thing, and they never once tried to do the Go Leafs Go, get the team going. Maybe they did, and maybe the mics weren't picking it up, but it was whisper quiet, and I feel bad for the players, because they go to these other barns, and it's a zoo.
Or you watch the Raptors, and it is always so incredibly loud from the fans there. So it's like, what's the disconnect between the second that the ice rink shows up in there, that place just becomes quiet? We know it can be loud. Yeah. If it gets the playoffs, well, they're most likely going to be in the playoffs with fans there. we know that place will be loud, but I don't think it'll still be what we're all expecting. They'll cut to the camera outside, and it'll be like 10 times louder.
Yeah,
with next to no people in comparison.
Well, and it's because that's where the fans are all hiding because they can't afford tickets to get in. And I understand that it's, the cost to get in, but that argument to me is kind of moot when it comes to like the Rangers games, for instance. I watched, I can't even remember, it was Rangers versus someone. I tuned into it after the Leafs game ended the other day. And it was so loud. It was incredible. Like, I just listened
MSG
to it. Got
is
me
always like that, though. It's
know.
so fun to watch MSG games.
But, like, how come Scotiabank's not like that? You say you've got the best fans in the world. Well, they sure aren't vocal. At least
the vocal ones can't get there. That's the issue. Or if they are, they're sitting up in the, like, 400 or 500s because it's the only thing available. Well, and the only thing that's not costing you, like, $250.
But, see, that argument's kind of done, though, because it's not cheap to go to MSG, right? So I don't know. It's frustrating because
are we trying to say that home fans of Toronto are not passionate?
Oh, they're passionate, but only on Twitter.
Yeah, I can't find the fault in that sentence there, Pat.
Yeah, and the other thing, now that we talked about New York, I want to quickly move to the Islanders, because when the Islanders were playing the Avalanche the other night, I noticed that every single one of their players looked like they belonged in New York. Like, they looked like, I don't know why, but I was just like, that's the most New York human I've ever seen.
Well, it could be because Lou Lamoriello's got the no beard policy, so they all have that, like, classic New York Yankees, you can't have facial hair, trim those sideburns.
It's just, and it was like Kyle Palmieri and Pajot.
He looks so weird without his beard, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Palmieri. Like, for a guy that looks like he has to shave between periods.
He's got a half-hour shadow, not even 5 o'clock. But
instead of, like, the Dollar Shave, he's got, like, truckloads of Dollar Shave Club showing up to his house, like, daily.
Naring his face.
He's sitting on the bench with the electric razor so that Lou doesn't trade him.
But yeah, no, they're the most, like, it looks like every single one of them would be like, hey, forget about it. Every time there was a penalty, and they'd be like, I'm walking here. Like, just the most typical, stereotypical New Yorkians. I'm probably going to get ripped apart for saying anything remotely like this, but it was so weird how every single player, I was like, that's a very New York looking human being. It was just odd.
Well, it's like that's why I said with the Yankees, like, you look at the Yankees players when they're out on the field, you're like, yeah, that's the Yankees. They've just got that look for some reason.
Yeah, like, each one of them would call it New York. Like, even though it's kind of Boston, it just sounds like...
Yeah, that was a little more Boston than New York, though.
But even still, it's just...
a little south.
I don't know. It's bizarre. But that has nothing to do with actual hockey. I mean, technically, but no. The one thing that I really want to talk about, because we haven't talked enough about this topic, and every single time we get to the end of the show... It's because this topic was on the list, but somehow did not ever make it to my lips until it was time for us to go through our games of the week.
We would like to thank Matt Damon for... Oh, sorry, we're out of time. It's literally our, like, Matt Damon skit.
It is the Minnesota Wild. So...
Okay, it's time to end the podcast. Thanks for listening.
You just hit the button that does the sounds for the games of the week. No, so, Minnesota Wild, yes, I do not like them. That is not a secret. I've been pretty vocal about this. They, if you do watch their games, Leafs fans, if you've tuned into any of the Minnesota Wild games, you look at the last time the Leafs played Minnesota, they tripped Kerfoot on the empty net. Really dirty play. There's a lot of really suspicious hits. There's a lot of calls that aren't called. It's a dangerous type of play.
Well, not only that, like, look at big Leafs personality Steve Dangle in his LFR. It was like... It was boring. How is a team that has that many good players just boring? And that's something that you've said too for years. They're boring.
They're the most boring.
They have
hockey.
one of the most dynamic players in the league, and they still somehow find a way to be boring.
They are the most boring hockey games I have ever watched. I don't understand how they have fans. Do they chug cough syrup in the stands? And they're just, like, kind of not all there? It's just, I don't know. I'm going to get a lot of death threats. But, so, with the Wild, I also, Jordan Greenway, y'all should look up Jordan Greenway. The man is just an injury machine, and somehow has, like, almost no suspensions, if none at all. He likes to go knee on knee. He likes to do hits that are immediately, you watch it, you're like, oh, that should have been a penalty, and somehow that he doesn't get a penalty. Somebody is kind of injured, has to hobble off the ice, and whoop, wouldn't you know it, he gets a goal. And then they reward him for injuring people by giving him a contract. All of this to say, my upsetness that has been boiling for the entirety of this season about the Minnesota Wild and how much I hate them, and that Kirill Kaprizov should have signed anywhere else but Minnesota, is I'm so happy they've lost the last 7 games out of 10. It makes me
Pat loves the Schadenfreude.
It makes me feel so good on the inside that they have only won 3 of their last 10 games because they're like, oh, Minnesota Wild, they're going to go to the Cup. No. Maybe they will, and I'm going to eat these words, but at least right now, I am happy because they are doing poorly. Yeah.
And as it stands right now, points-wise, not points percentage, they're actually behind the lookout Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
Who saw that one coming? Looking at the standings for them right now, they are like grasping at straws trying to keep that third central spot right now. Because Nashville 64, Dallas 63, Minnesota sitting at 65. They're very lucky they have games in hand. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's one of those teams that I know we're gonna somewhat touch on this after. That if they're not looking at making a deal before the trade deadline, they may still make it in, but unless they can find some sort of way to add an impact to their team, like Calgary, look at them. They get to Foley. They were already on their hot streak, but it was definitely that injection of like, oh yeah, let's get things going. But I guess if you're the GM, why would you want to reward the team if suddenly they're 3-7? Lost 4 straight, let them show that they deserve to go there.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the last 10 games, which is sort of like the common thing I do, look back on the last 10. It's a pretty good scope to see how the teams are doing right this moment. Calgary's at the top. They've got 9 wins, 1 loss. That's pretty great. The one thing that they need to keep an eye on, not Calgary, but Minnesota, is Dallas. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10. Dallas has been just kind of quietly
turned it
doing
on.
Things. Yeah, and nobody's talking about it.
Minnesota went and Nashville's gone
Yep.
And all of a sudden Dallas they're just storming back in. And as we saw when they made it to the Cup Finals in the pandemic season in the first bubble, they can go on runs.
Yeah.
Like don't count out that team because they're one of those teams that they are built for playoff hockey. Mind you, they don't have Corey Perry anymore. He keeps moving around to teams that lose in the finals, so that means Tampa Bay will not win this year. Woo! Poor guy, by the way.
He has a cup. He has a cup.
He has, yes, but still.
Yeah, if it was like his whole entire career, he kept moving.
Every year goes to a new team.
He goes to a new team. They're like, we need that net front presence. We need PP2. And he's still.
By the way, he's having a sneaky, phenomenal season. Have you looked at his numbers?
He is still very good. I know that he's not the darling child of the NHL. I know he's kind of
He never was.
No, he never was. Tom Wilson has kind of taken the mantle. Maybe Nazem Kadri, I don't know. But one of those who have kind of taken the mantle of, the most hated man in the NHL. But before it was Corey Perry. He's always been good. He's annoying. He's kind of like a predecessor of Tkachuk's, of the Tkachuk twins, I guess.
Look at when Matthew Tkachuk was getting drafted, or before the draft. I believe it was Hockey Night in Canada, the first intermission thing or something like that, and they had asked all the players who's your favorite player. He says Corey Perry, and everybody turns to look at him like, excuse me? And it's honestly one of my favorite dumb no context NHL clips that exist.
But I don't understand how that's surprising. Not only was he on the same farm team, if you will, the London Knights. The two of them, they didn't play together, but that's where they got their start. But they play a similar style of hockey. They like to throw the body around. They're not afraid to get, a little bit dirty and cheeky. They try and draw penalties by being kind of a jerk. And it works. They can put in goals. They can be that net front presence and push people away. Like, you need that on your team. That's a valuable asset. So,
and they both have unreal hands. Like, that was one of the things with Perry early on. Like, look at Chuck. Pretty sure he has more in between the legs goals than like the rest of the league combined in the last like 3 years. And that's just him this year. It's just unreal watching that. Somehow we were talking about Dallas, by the way.
Oh yeah, Dallas.
Beware Central Division. They are coming up hot. If they're playing you on the road, though, like if you're at home and they're on the road, they are surprisingly, if you look down the list of teams that are in a playoff spot or on the bubble of going in, they are the worst road team.
Really?
They are 10-13-2. You have to go down to Winnipeg, who is way out of there right now, as the only other close to team to the playoffs, or you look at Detroit, who stands no chance. So that's one of those weird things. They're 20-7 at home. So that's where a lot of those wins are coming from. So if Dallas gets a big road trip, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I didn't really piece that one together, but if you're looking at the wild card, right now, Dallas is sitting in that second wild card spot. They're knocking on the door to get into, the first, second, third. Definitely not going to hit first. I would be really shocked if they did. But, knocking on the door with Minnesota, and really St. Louis is only 5 points ahead of Minnesota with 70. Nashville is before them, and then there's this fight. I am so excited for the next month, or like the last, 10, 15 games.
Because the East is locked. We already know it's just positioning in the East. There's I think the last check, it was like a 1.2% or something like that Columbus somehow sneaks in. Other than that, the 8 in the East are locked in. The West, it's the bingo balls.
4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, that's right. And counting, in theory, if you want to count Vegas, so Vegas is sitting at 64 points. San Jose is sitting at 54 points. So that's a 10-point difference. But between those two teams and counting those two teams, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And you could go 9 because you've got Minnesota and LA both sitting at 65. So 11 points. There are 9 teams, and that makes for fun. It's too bad those games start at stupid o'clock.
Yeah, those will be tough, but when they come divisional games, so obviously you're going to see Nashville versus Toronto and stuff like that, and those aren't going to be as heated. But the games when it's division rival, not only division rival, but ones that are also fighting for a spot, that will feel like a playoff game because they know how valuable those 2 points are and how valuable it is that they get the 2 and the other team gets the 0. You
don't want the loser point. That's the one thing every single team in the Pacific and Central right now is watching other games going straight up win. Yeah. Don't give the loser point, because that's what makes these races so much crazier when you look at it. Anaheim, they have 9. Anaheim and Winnipeg have 9 overtime losses. That's 9 free points. That's ridiculous to me.
I think my favorite thing about the loser point is that Montreal, as well as they've been kind of doing, they have 13 wins and they're not in last place. Whereas Arizona, who is in last place, has 14 wins.
Because of the loser point.
But yeah, so they only have 4 loser points, Arizona, whereas Montreal has 7 loser points. So Montreal's ahead of them simply because they were able to make it through the game with a tie and then lost in overtime instead 7 times.
Let's play a quick game. I know you're looking there, but look away from your phone. Which team has the least amount of overtime losses?
I know the most is Philly. The least... I don't know. Is it the
They
Avalanche?
only have one. They only have one. It's not the Avs. They have 4.
Okay.
And the Avs are also 3-1 in the shootout.
Oh, interesting. I have no idea. Anaheim.
The Columbus Blue Jackets.
CBJ's been doing so well. It's
But
so
then you
good.
look at it, so they have 28 wins. They only have 19 regulation wins. So that's where you're like, ooh, not quite as good.
No, and I mean, my goodness, the amount of goals that are going in.
Yeah, can we go there since we're looking? You sent me this, and I thought that you had photoshopped something when you sent this to me, that in the month of February, the New Jersey Devils were the highest goal-scoring team in the National Hockey League on average. What?
They are playing.
I know that they had 3 7-goal games within I think it was a 5 or 6 game stretch, but like I think there was only one game where they scored 3 or less goals, if I'm not mistaken. They lost a ton of the games in there too, so it's crazy. But like ahead of Tampa, ahead of Carolina, ahead of Colorado, it's like when and how did this happen? I'm loving it. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad to see Dougie Hamilton's back. He's playing well. He looks like he's trying to become Pac-Man out there with that face guard, and I am still all for it. Jack Hughes keeping his point per game plus streak going. You've got Heischer, who's starting to score at a ridiculous pace. Jesper Bratt. Like, somehow the Devils aren't even the worst. Like, I think we're top 15 in the league for defensemen scoring too. We just can't get saves.
Yeah, like you guys are kind of the definition of outscoring your problems right now. But one thing that did kind of propel them, and I'm not trying to cheapen the win that you've got right now, but one thing that does kind of propel them is they had a heck of a lot less games in February.
Yes.
So they only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They only had 9 games in February.
The Devils only had, I think, 1 or 2 rescheduled COVID games, because the ones that a lot of teams, theirs were made up during what would be the Olympic break. Mm-hmm. The Devils ones, they were just like, oh, we'll play them like the next night. So and then they swap around instead of it being like an away game for the Devils in Toronto or Ottawa. They just did that. That's how we got the fun home and home, that the Devils almost won the first one and then got their butt kicked in the second one.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, is so they had 2 games where they only scored 1 goal, one game where they scored 2 goals, and then the rest
7.
Then it's 7, 7, 3, 6, 5, 7.
That's ridiculous.
That's
like, even their last game that they lost, it was they still had 3 goals, and they were outplaying that game. And I would like to point out that in this, yes, there was a 7-1 win against Montreal, but they also beat St. Louis 7-4. Mm-hmm. They beat Pittsburgh 6-1. They pretty much dashed Vancouver's hopes with a 7-2 win. So it was nice to see. It was the same thing with us talking about Montreal before. Now that Marty St. Louis is there, you know the team's not making the playoffs. You want the games to be fun. High-scoring games. 8-5 loss against Chicago sucked. It was fun, though.
It was fun, and the other thing, too, is that they are earning spots on the team or other teams. So you've got young kids that are trying to prove themselves. You've got vets that are trying to say, I still have time. I still have, gas in the tank. For instance, PK Subban is one that you look to. He's not anything like he used to be, but he's found a different game, which is nice to see. And the Slewfoots are starting to slow down on the second half of the season, which is also nice to see. But at the same time, you do have this team that is out there, and they know they're in no position to win. They know it. We all know it. But at the same time, they are saying, I am an asset. You should keep me on the team. And if you don't want to keep me on the team, I know I can get money if I go somewhere else.
Well, and if you're looking at the defensemen, aside from probably Dougie Hamilton, and Siegenthaler, because he's looked phenomenal. I think even at this point, Ryan Graves is looking behind him going, if I don't play well, I could very well lose my spot next year to a rookie coming in who is breaking records in Michigan, that being Jack Hughes' brother, Luke Hughes. Like the Devils, it's nice to actually have a prospect down the line that is like, he looks like he's one of those like A+ tier potential. All I can pray and hope for is that he's anything like Seider, and I am so happy.
Yeah, no, you've definitely got a really solid prospect there. Another one that this year that's been really good has been Sharon Govich. He's looked really good on the ice.
Good second year for him with the Devils.
Yeah, and then even the rookie, was it Dawson Mercer? He's been doing really well.
We jumped back. I can't remember what episode it was, but we had talked about him a little bit because he reminds me so much of Blake Coleman, and just that he's a little bit faster than most skaters out there. He just seems to get into the corners and just always comes out with the puck. It's just like, it's just what he does. And then, of course, we've got who seems to be just dominating the AHL. He's struggled coming up to the NHL so far, and Holtz. Like, the Devils actually have a pretty solid-looking lineup for a few years to come. The issue is, and has been, ever since Corey Schneider got injured, goaltending.
Yeah, and there was hope with Blackwood that was.
There was hope with Corey Crawford too, and then he had to retire.
Well, I'm just saying that Blackwood should actually be a solution, but he's injured, and injuries happen. That sucks. I mean, speaking as a Colorado Avalanche fan, you look at not last playoff, but the playoff before. Injuries suck.
Was that your second or third string goal? Third or fourth, actually. What was Hutchison? Your fourth string?
I think he was our third at the time, and they didn't want to bring in... Or no, he was our fourth because...
Yeah, and he still somehow got you guys the, 2 of the 3 2 wins, which was unbelievable. Like, he played lights out. And in that final game, if I'm not mistaken, the Avs just decided to not really score.
Yeah, they also were really banged up. I think McKinnon had to have surgery the next day, pretty much. But no, that was definitely a case of, Grubauer was the starter. He got injured. Francouz was already out because I think he had a concussion.
JJ, right?
No, JJ was a scoop the next year because they wanted to make sure that they had a backup. I believe it was Hunter Miska went in, and he did not play well. So then they brought in Hutchinson, which was the 4th string. So Miska is going to be good, but like most goalies, it takes a while of conditioning and many years in the AHL.
What year was that again, if I'm just checking? Was that 2018-2019 or 2019-2020?
That would have been 2019-2020 because...
Okay, I was looking at the wrong year. I saw Varlamov, and I was like, I forgot he was with you guys.
Yeah, no, he was the most slept-on goaltender for the entire league. He was a very good goaltender, and they traded him away because he was going to cost way too much.
Well, that's usually how it goes with goalies, right?
Yeah.
And, well, look at the offseason with what teams were paying to try and get goalies.
Yeah, no, goalie... It's going to be interesting with the trade deadline with goalies. I don't know. I don't know if we want to jump in there quite yet. But just kind of staying with New Jersey, I think you guys have a really strong team for the next probably 3 years, so long as a lot of the talent that you've been collecting, because that's really what you've been doing is collecting talent, but like young talent. Like I look at like the EA GM
We're
mode.
the youngest team in the league, and it's not even close, and that can be part of the issue. It's trying to get the young players set to go, and like even you say 3 years, they've got a few more than that because I think Heischer is the longest contract. He still has, I think, 5 years after next year, and then a lot of the others are locked up. We know Jesper Bratt's going to have a heck of a payday coming towards him, but the one nice thing about seeing Dougie Hamilton come in the offseason was free agents aren't afraid to go to Jersey now.
Yeah, and that's really, really true. You've got a lot of name power there with Jack Hughes showing how strong of a player he is. Like he's been on a tear. I saw a stat on I think it was on a New York Rangers game, which I was just like, that's weird that they're praising Jack Hughes. But they were showing that, again, in February, he had some of the highest goals or points per game average at 2.2. So he was putting up most of the points by the looks of it. So he's been just like playing a completely different game, which is what he was playing at the start of the season before he got injured. So it's showing that he can come back from injuries. He can come back from adversity, which is such a good sign for somebody that's young. That's what you need on the team.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he had like tied a record for 20 and under for most amount of games in a row with multi-points, and it was just one of those like weird stats to see the names that he was with. It was like, I will accept that.
Yeah.
We'll move on from there. I could talk New Jersey. We haven't talked a lot of Jersey, I feel like, since Jack Hughes got hurt.
Don't worry,
it was kind of nice being able to do that.
We're going to have a good conversation of Jersey in April. I can promise you that. I'm going to a New Jersey game, and I'm going to Las Vegas, and I'm going to see a New Jersey game, which is
I forgot about that.
We're alluding to that, so we will talk about that.
I had forgot you were doing that. Sportsnet put up a post that is trade destinations for some hot players out there. I honestly disagree with some names that aren't on there. I obviously have a bit of New Jersey bias. I can't believe that Severson isn't on there, or Severson, sorry. Considering he's playing well again. He has his moments, but he's one of those players that, like, if teams were scooping and desperately trying to get Sami Vatanen before, the fact that they're not looking at Severson is like, really?
Yeah, they could lowball
Maybe the price
him.
Is too high. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and that's, I think, what it's got to be that he's asking for too much, or the price from the team to get him is too much. Because, or, you know, maybe they're just, I mean, you look at the names on this list that we're going to run through. I don't think Severson, it's a pretty top tier list of names. And Severson, I don't think, would really slide into it.
He's that next tier below. That I can easily say that on this list.
So this list that we're talking about, it's a post that they did. It's called The Most Interesting NHL Trade Candidates to Watch. And they have, I've been counting a lot in this episode.
There's 12, Pat. There's 12.
Is there 12? Did they say 12, or did you already count?
I already counted.
Oh, okay.
I count in my head.
I don't. So there's 12 names on this. What I've decided, I've voluntold Brian we're going to do this. We're going to go through the whole list of the names, and we're going to say, if they get traded, which team we think they would be the right choice. We don't really have to justify it too much unless we feel we need to. Or if we think they're going to stay put, if they're going to stay with the team they're currently on. So,
but very quick answers, because if we overthink it, then we'll run into trouble, because then we'll be like, well, actually, but no, yes, and yeah.
And you also
try and rapid fire it a little bit.
You don't want to listen to us debate whether or not Thomas Hertl is going to be, you know, a Toronto Maple Leaf or
he won't be.
No, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You don't care, and I don't blame you. All right, so the first name, we've actually kind of talked about this name, and that is Jakob Chychrun, currently with the Arizona Coyotes. Do you think he's going to be moved at the before the trade deadline?
Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm still sticking by that. You watch the Leafs, they need a defenseman. He is got term. He's very good. If he's not with the Leafs, then I don't know what they do.
I think he's going to be traded. I don't think the Leafs are going to make the right choice, and they're not going to pick him up. I think, and this is a weird one, but stick with me, I think that there's going to be a three-way trade involving him and Sam Girard, and I think Sam Girard is going to end up in Montreal, and Chychrun's going to end up in Colorado, and something is going to happen from Montreal to Arizona.
Sakic can only pull that off once. He can only fleece two teams in a three-team trade once. If he pulls that off again, teams are just never going to pick up the phone when it says Joe Sakic.
Girard's a good asset. He is. He's not performing to the same levels that he needs to be, and they need more size. So that's...
And the reason where I can see that on this list, there is a Montreal defenseman. So, yeah, do I think that's going to happen? No. But, hey, you never know. We could be Maybe Pat's got the inside scoop somehow on that one.
I don't know. My gut just says that.
We'll go to another defenseman. We've talked about this team a fair amount. Dallas, John Klingberg. He basically said, I want out because you don't want to give me the money I want. Does he stay? Or does he get traded to where?
He's staying.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. Because no team wants to pick him up if he costs that much.
Yeah, because I think it would be one of those. It would have to be a cheaper deal.
Yep.
Because he's not going to stay. If he goes anywhere, part of my brain thinks he could end up with Winnipeg because they need to do something, and they've struggled on defense since they lost Bufflin and Myers years ago.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a pretty smart move. And they seem to just make weird decisions. I don't want to say bad decisions, but weird decisions.
Yes.
So here's another one. We talked about this gentleman quite a bit last podcast, and that is from Philadelphia, Claude Giroux. Do you think he's going to move, and where?
I still think he's going to move. Obviously, he's going to hit that 1,000th Flyer game first, which is why he hasn't moved yet. He wants to have his 1,000 games as a Philadelphia Flyer. Then he's going to the West Coast. I still think Colorado, another team that is on my list now that could desperately use this player, is the Nashville Predators.
I'm on the fence on whether or not he's going to move. I think there's a solid, like, I think it's like 70.
He wants
30.
to chase the cup. He wants a cup chase.
Yeah. But I think he's going to go to St. Louis. I think it's going to be the Beard Bros of Ryan O'Reilly and Claude Giroux. I don't know. I see him as a Blue. I see him in the Blue. I don't see him as an Avalanche. I don't think that's the right fit to have him in Colorado, personally.
I will say it's crazy looking at this list, and almost all of them, I'm like, yeah, they're probably going to the West Coast. I don't know why, but it just seems to be that way. Two-time Stanley Cup champion, plays for the Arizona Coyotes. Phil Kessel, does he stay or does he go?
I think he's going to go somewhere. I think he wants to go somewhere that isn't Arizona. He's played there for a bit. It does kind of feel like the Florida of the hockey
you know
league.
what? Oh, I was going to say, you know where he's going to end up is Florida. They will somehow make that one work. I don't know how. I don't know why. The second you said Florida as an aside, my brain went, he's going to be a Panther.
I don't think he's going to end up in... Well, maybe he wants to go to... Yeah, maybe he wants to retire.
You think he's not going to move from a sunny retirement place to a sunny retirement place?
Do they have hot dogs? Oh,
sure
wait.
They do.
He's going to play for Chicago. He wants that Chicago dog. Whatever has the best hot dog.
They're not going to make it to the cup, though.
No, that's true. No, if he does decide that he is going to be moving, and let's say it isn't a sunny destination, it's just whichever team he thinks he can make the biggest impact on or is willing to take him. I like chaos, and I like the idea that he hates Toronto. I think he's going to end up in Boston.
He's going back to the team that drafted him? He's going back to the team that traded him away to Toronto?
Maybe it's like a full circle moment, and that's what he wants to do and show that he still has engine.
I know we don't want to stay on these long, but that would also mean that the Leafs are then paying for a Boston player because they still have his salary retained.
And that is 100% the reason why I hope he goes to Boston, but I think you're right. He's probably going to end up somewhere in Florida. So, next name on this list is where I almost said Kessel would go if they were doing well, and that is Montreal, because again, spite to Toronto. And it's Ben Sherratt. This name has been talked about. Yeah, he's not staying in Montreal.
I don't think there's any universe or multiverse or one in however many Doctor Strange chances that he stays in Montreal. That team is rebuilding. He is going to bring them in a pick, a body, and a prospect, and they're probably more interested in that prospect than anything, so I don't know where he's going to go. It's going to be the team that offers the best prospect, so I can't say. It may not even be a playoff team.
I sincerely believe he's going to end up in Vancouver. I think that Vancouver's looking at their defenseman depth, and it's a little weak. And I think that there's going to be a trade with potentially some names that are on this list that might be involved with that move. I think Vancouver's a good fit, and I think potentially Calgary maybe, depending on how...
Calgary's pretty locked into their money, so that one would be interesting.
Yeah.
Funny that you think that he's staying in Canada. We'll move on to the next one. We teased it off the top. Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks. Does he stay or does he go?
I need to say that this player is one of the most underrated players in the entire NHL. He is fan-friggin-tastic and is being wasted away in San Jose. I sincerely pray that he does not stay there, but I think he will.
Yeah, apparently a lot of this one has to do with if his next contract is not signed a few days before the deadline, he will be shopped. That is according, rumors coming out from the GM. So it's so tough to say. I agree. He is one of those players that can elevate your team to move on. Just because I'm going to say he is going to move.
He reminds me of a Bunting, actually. Just gritty, willing to do the dirty plays. I've always been a fan of Tomas Hertl and Timo Meier as well. I do like the players on San Jose. I just don't think that they work together well as a team.
Tomas Hertl is going to end up as a Pittsburgh Penguin.
Oh, okay.
There's my potentially biggest hot take on this list.
I wish I was writing these down.
We'll do that after.
Yeah, I guess we have the luck of being able to go through this. So next up is Team 32, Seattle Kraken, Mark Giordano.
The captain, he's getting traded.
Who wants him though?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I really hope they don't.
Potentially the New York Rangers.
I mean, he would.
If it's going to be a team, it's going to be an East team because East teams are loading up on big playoff bodies that can throw the hits, that can be dirty. He literally fits every single checkbox on that. To me, I don't think he stays there. Yes, they gave him the C. That's the only thing that could potentially keep it there, but then it goes to Eberle next season anyway.
I don't know. I don't see the value in Giordano, and I think a lot of teams are kind of feeling the same way, and I feel that Seattle, based off of the way that they drafted, don't know how to do anything in regards to hockey. So they're probably going to be asking $1 million, the equivalent of, I guess, $1 billion now, because before that joke was, yeah. Anyways, I can't see him being moved because I don't see the value. I don't think he's going to move because no team is going to say he needs to be on our roster.
It would be a retained contract. I think that's the way that one would go. We'll see. I think that's one of the first big disagreements between you and I. Next one. Does Flower stay in Chicago, or does he go to any team that is not the Washington Capitals?
If he is willing to play in Canada, he is going to play in Edmonton. I think that
I'm in agreement. If he goes anywhere, it's Edmonton. Anywhere else, I don't think so. Because it'd be too rough on his family if he's going anywhere. He wants the highest chance at a cup, and no offense to the Avs. It's a lot easier to make it out of the West, I feel, this year.
Oh, and the one thing that he was quoted into saying one time is that on his bucket list as a goalie is to have a goalie fight. And if there is a team that there is a chance of a goalie fight, it is either Edmonton or Calgary, because that's almost happened in not even that long ago. So that could also be
the Markstrom Fleury fight. Yeah, you heard it here first.
What a weird one. Now this one's kind of a spicy one. I'm gonna dive into my theory with this one first, if that's okay with you, Brian.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this one is JT Miller. The reason I wanted to dive into this is because I am sick and tired of people talking about how JT Miller is going to go to Toronto. They don't need him. I know
You can blame Elliot Friedman for that one, by the way.
I know, because it was during a Toronto Maple Leafs game. Like, it was like this weird, 7 degrees or whatever it is of association to it. But they don't need it. They don't need that scoring. Like, why would they need to bring on JT Miller to score goals when they have Matthews, Marner, William Nylander, Michael Bunting, really, and JT? They don't need
so that they could score 12 goals in a game, not 10.
It's overkill. They need one of two things to really shore up their team, and that is a defenseman or a goaltender. So why would they look at JT Miller? They might want to bring in another forward, and out of Vancouver, I think Connor Garland is the better fit. You were the one that brought that up. I think it makes sense to bring in a Bunting-esque player to bring a second round of grit. But JT Miller will not be a Toronto Maple Leaf. I'm willing to bet whatever it is. If anyone wants to challenge me on it, then fine, but he will not. And I think that he's going to stay in Vancouver.
I think he's going to get traded just because his value is so high. When he was brought in, that first round pick, everybody was like, whew, you could trade him right now at the deadline for more than you got. However, if you do that, we'll include the next name on this list, which I don't get why he is on there. If JT Miller gets traded, or this next name on the list, Brock Besser, that is Vancouver throwing in the towel on the playoffs.
Exactly.
So I think that one is we've got, as of right now, what are we at? 18 days until the deadline. The next 3 or 4 Canucks games, I think, will determine if JT Miller and or Brock Besser and or Connor Garland get traded.
Yeah, and
Brock Besser, does he stay or does he go?
Brock Besser, I don't think that he's going. I don't think Vancouver's going to do a lot of moves unless they're just like, screw it, we're done. We can't make the playoffs, blow it all up. And that's not the mode they're in. They blew up their entire back end. They need to make sure the back end can work and make sure that the people on the ice can play the game, and then they'll reassess it because they have the talent. They do. And the talent includes Brock Besser and JT Miller on top of everyone else, and they've proven it.
I think if you're getting rid of Brock Besser, you're making one of the biggest mistakes that organization has made, along with keeping their GM for as long as they did.
Yep, absolutely. Brock Besser is an unsung hero for that team, although I do think he is overrated. There's a lot of hype to Brock Besser. He's good, but I don't think he's as good as what the hype says it is. So, the second to last one on this list is from Boston, and it is Jake DeBrusk.
And his name has been out there a lot recently because he's underperforming, he's not doing that well, and then what does he do the other night? Throws up a hat trick. So suddenly it's like, ooh, do we keep him because he's found his scoring touch, or do we trade him because it looks like his value is going up? The only way I see him getting traded is a straight up like hockey trade as just a change of scenery. Mm-hmm. Other than that, Boston has a playoff team. They're struggling a little bit goalie-wise at times, but why would Boston? Don't mess with what works, and he's starting to get his scoring touch. Unless it's like a one in, one out thing, he's staying.
I think it might be a 1-to-1. I think they need to do a little bit more on their defense. They have a decent amount of talent when it gets to putting pucks in the net, but I think that they need a more shutdown kind of mindset. So they could be in the running for a Chychrun or even a Klingberg, really, or even Sherrod. I think Boston.
I don't know if I could see Boston and Montreal doing a trade though.
True.
In a year that one team is like, I just don't know about that. I mean, it has happened, but
you never know. I don't think DeBrusk is going to be there. I think he's outstayed his welcome in Boston. I think the fans are starting to turn on him, and when that happens,
they also turned on one of the best goaltenders in the last 15 years to come into the league. So don't trust the fans.
Hey, you know what? They never turned on him. They just always disrespected him.
That's true. Like Tuukka Rask on any other team, he's got his statue already sitting outside the building the second that he retired.
Yeah. All right.
Move on to the final one, which the general manager of this player quoted earlier this week with probably the best quote, Jarmo Kekalainen, because I can't even say it. Patrick Laine, he was traded 2 years ago at the deadline for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That was the Jets and Columbus doing that trade. Mm-hmm. Does Patrick Laine, who has found his scoring touch again, stay or does he go? The general manager says he's not going.
Yeah, no. The fact that his name is on this list is kind of silly to me. And again, I will fight anybody that says that if he does move, then fine, I'll eat crow on this. But there's no way. Like, why would they give away such a valuable asset when they have no assets?
Well, not only that, I think if this season was what everybody expected from Columbus, for them to be down at like Montreal levels of bad, because it was going into the season, it was like Columbus is the last place team. They've been hot. They've found ways to be hot. Mm-hmm. The player that should have been on here instead of Patrick Laine is Max Domi, and his name has been linked a lot the last, when did the Leafs and Red Wings game finish? To Toronto ever since. The Domi homecoming.
And honestly, I don't think Domi to Toronto makes any sense. Again, it goes back to they don't need the forwards. They don't
need the forwards, but they need the player that just goes out there and is just a ball of anger. That is Max Domi on the ice. So that is the only reason why. If they are going after, like, they can't get Tkachuk, he's too expensive.
Yeah.
They can't get the other Tkachuk, he's too expensive. Mm-hmm. They can't get Josh Anderson, he's too expensive. So why not go for the other ex-London Knight, who's a bit of a annoyance of a player? Oh. I mean, they're just going through the list, and he's the lowest one on the totem pole right now.
Are you ready for this? I'm calling it now. The Toronto Maple Leafs have traded for Ryan Reeves.
New York would never get rid of him. He was brought in as the Tom Wilson deterrent. Everybody knows it, and he knows it.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Tom Wilson flipping Panarin at the end of last season is what gave Ryan Reeves his New York Rangers contract.
Yeah, well, maybe they pick up Zadorov then, but I feel like they're going to... They picked up Lyubushkin, and I think they're going to pick up somebody that's a little bit more gritty, or they're just going to do something that would be like, oh, okay, cool. Hopefully that works out as well as it did last year when it didn't work out.
So 12 players on that list, some that make absolutely no sense, but... A good list nonetheless. It's probably some of the higher tier players. There hasn't been too many trades so far. It will start to ramp up soon, probably 21st, I believe, is the trade deadline. So as we get closer, maybe we can chat a little bit more on it.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be fun. It's always such a fun day, and you feel so bad for the broadcasters, which is my favorite part, working in media. I think
my favorite part is how disappointed I am every year.
You expect the highest of highs, and it's just like, it's once again, it's the dead dove or dead bird don't open, whatever it is. I don't know what I expected.
And it's quite literally like you're sitting there and you're just like, I've never even heard of this person, and they've traded for
but I'm so excited for it.
Future considerations, and then we'll send each other the tweet at the exact same time that this fourth liner in the AHL was traded for a bag of pucks, and we're like, did you see it?
Before we get to the games of the week quickly, I have something on here that's just called Brian's Surprise Bit. Okay. This was tweeted almost 2 hours ago to the minute from Icethetics or Icethetics. I don't know how to say it. They basically leak a ton of things because they have to do with logos and jerseys.
Oh, okay.
So here's a bit of NHL logo news. The Stanley Cup playoff logo has been the same since 2013. Mm-hmm. A new logo for the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs is coming.
Ooh.
I think that's exciting.
That is
exciting. I hate the current logo. I think it is the most boring, stupid thing. They've got the Stanley Cup, which is the most iconic trophy in all of sports. And they're just like, let's put a stupid crest down below it or something.
I don't know what else they're going to do.
It can't get, I shouldn't say that. It can probably get worse. But it'll be nice to see something new. Maybe they'll be like, let's do something crazy. Let's add some color to the logo. Like, I love the old school 90s where it was like the stars on it, the old NHL logo, and it had the like brownish color on it. Bring that back and I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have a new logo, but it's kind of one of those, is the grass going to be greener or is it going to be a mud pit? And my vote, with everything that's been happening in the NHL, my vote is it is going to be worse than a mud pit. We're going to look at that thing and be like, and how long is this logo going to be used for? How many years are we going to be seeing this?
Literally 5 minutes ago, they tweeted out what it'll apparently look like. I want the old one back.
Look at that. I'm already right.
The logo features new typography, a new render of the cup itself, and it's once again inside of like a crest. You know what? We'll draw our own and see if we like ours more.
Yeah, we'll just left-hand draw or MS Paint. Yeah.
At least there's a lot less text on it. I will say that. There is that. I'll send it to you. You take a look at that while I do this.
The Ice Prep Podcast presents Games of the Week.
I would like to say I think for the first time I had the biggest W on Games of the Week. You've kind of had the last few weeks. You've nailed it. I definitely won this week, and there's no contest to it. Before, what do you think of the?
The logo looks. Honestly,
it does look better, honestly. Yeah. But still, I don't know what I expected.
Yeah.
My game of the week will start with that. I put it as just hey, it could be fun. Montreal at Winnipeg. Oh my God! For the first time in history, a team goes up 4-0. A team then ties it 4-4. The other team that was up 4-0 then scores another 4. So there was 12 unanswered goals in that game. Winnipeg wins it 8-4. What a stupid fun game.
Well, and Josh Anderson got a hat trick, and it didn't even matter.
Didn't somebody on Winnipeg get a hat trick too that game?
Maybe, I don't know. It was also the first game since Scheifele took out Evans, so like there was a lot.
Yeah,
of
and good on
heat
Evans for basically when he was asked about that, he's like, I don't care. I just want to play hockey. You know what? I like that style of just let's just play.
Yeah, no drama. Let's just figure it out on the ice. Mine, I was one game off with my selection. I chose Toronto versus Washington on Monday. Toronto still won 5-3. It was still a good game. It was enjoyable to watch. But let's be honest, the Detroit game that preceded it, like, the only way this game would have been better is if somehow there was like 26 goals in it. It was 13, or, it was, come on, math. 15-11, That took too long for me to come up with what could add to 26.
No, there's only the one hat trick. I just looked it up, by the way.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So I definitely won this week's game of the weeks. We're not keeping score, but I definitely won that one.
Yeah.
We'll start with mine just because I think you have, obviously your game's the better game. Mine is on there because St. Louis needs to win games. Mm-hmm. They cannot afford losing to one of the bottom teams in the league. The last time they met, the Devils beat St. Louis 7-4 and made Jordan Binnington look like a fool. That game is Sunday at 1 p.m. The Devils are scoring a ton, and I think every team in the West is cheering for New Jersey on this one.
Yeah, no, and St. Louis, if you look at their last 10, they're 6-3-1, so they're doing good. They're playing
one of those L's
hockey.
Is to the Devils.
Yeah, they're playing 650 hockey, so it's not terrible, but at the same time, they have a lot that they have to keep going. They have to keep that momentum going, so that'll be an interesting one, I agree. And the midday New Jersey games, which is apparently every New Jersey game.
It's what they do, which as a dad, I love those games.
That's fair. Yeah, I would rather have a midday than a 10:30. So,
and not AM. That's PM. This is why I think if I lived on the West Coast, I would be the happiest camper because you get the Saturday night 4 p.m. game, then Saturday night 7 p.m. game, and you're like, this is the best. It's just hockey all day long.
Yeah, you could.
If there was this, you'd wake up, you'd still be. Well, I don't get hungover anymore because I never drink, but you'd wake up. Oh, hockey's on at 9 a.m. Here we go.
Well, and you got the 4 p.m. start. You can watch the whole game and then be like, well, I guess I'll start dinner once it's done. Come on. Anyways, my game of the week, I think a lot of people could probably see this one coming. I've had it circled on my calendar for quite a bit, and that is Edmonton at Calgary. Now, are they an equal match? Absolutely not. No, they aren't. Unless they make trades before it, because it's on the Monday, so who knows?
No matter what goaltender Edmonton brings in, Calgary still has the goaltending advantage.
Yeah, so you've got pretty much like he should, if it wasn't for Igor on New York, he would be the top candidate for Vezina. But yeah, you've got the hottest goaltender in Markstrom versus whoever Edmonton decides to dust off the shelf and put in net.
Whoever they decide to throw to the Wolves.
Exactly. And you also have Evander Kane, who has been quiet, but he is also a very heated player, and I am wondering when he breaks. And I think it could be in the game where he's expected to.
Because either Lucic or Kachuk, they're going to get under his skin.
Yeah. So I am really looking forward to this. The Battle of Alberta, it is a real thing, especially since Edmonton can't afford to lose games right now. They really cannot. And Calgary they can lose a few, but at the same time, they're in a similar situation. So this is what I was talking about earlier on in the podcast of, I think that the teams that are all fighting for a spot, when they finally get together and they have these matches getting closer to the end, you're going to see playoff style hockey, and I'm hopeful this will be just a battle. Hence the name.
Yeah, well, Battle of Alberta, they are always the most fun, crazy games that you can watch. At least it's on at 9:30 p.m., but it would be nice if it was on a school or not a school night.
Yeah.
On a weekend, but Monday night for that one. So, hey, who knows? Maybe my out of left field call again will be a fun game. There's no football on, so that's also why the Devils play Sunday at 1.
True.
So otherwise, they would completely avoid that. I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. Obviously, next week's episode and the one after might be a little bit more trade-focused, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we do see a few trades coming through early. Don't be surprised if you see some stuff from Dubas. And just keep an eye on, I know it's weird to say this, but keep an eye on Twitter. There are a few accounts that are watching which teams have scouts and GMs and AGMs attending other team games. The other day, there was a Philadelphia versus Edmonton, I believe was the game, and there was, I think, 12 teams had representatives watching the game. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. There's a lot of people that are watching it too. So I am really excited for the next couple weeks to see what shakeups happen.
And of course, there's a ton going on in the world at this time. We didn't touch on it at all here. The one thing I will say is that I am glad to hear that the Olympic Committee, the Paralympics, have banned the Russian and Belarus athletes from competing. It sucks for those athletes. They're not a part of this, but I don't think we expected to see that happening. Yeah,
and to just myself quickly touch on it, I think we're both in agreement that what we do not like, it's awful, what's happening over there. It's hard to put into words, seeing everything pop up on the feeds and everything like that. So our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, our everything are with the people of Ukraine and anybody that's being affected with this, whether they're over in Ukraine or wherever they live throughout the world. So our hearts are with you. If the news has been hard for you, please take time. I generally try and say this close to the end of the podcast as it is anyway, but please take time for yourselves. Put the phone down. Don't doom scroll, as they say. And just take a few moments. The news will be there when you get back, but take time for you if you're able to, because this time is not easy. And just know that we're all hoping for a quick and peaceful resolution.